Hi everybody, welcome to Fiber Fun with Olivia. My name is Olivia. I am a knitter and crocheter and I love to geek out on anything related to fiber and yarn. I hope you do too. If you are new here, welcome to the Fiber Fun Familia, and if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. It's been a few weeks that I have been getting the itch to make another SCRAP-GHAN. I love to crochet blankets. I have for a very long time, and I've always made blankets on and off. And the past few years, I have really enjoyed making SCRAP-GHANs, using up yarn that I love, that I have in my stash. I actually made a video about it back when I had another channel called Makeup Fun with Olivia, if some of you remember. And during the pandemic, I decided to start talking about yarn in that channel. And after that, I decided, you know what, I need a separate channel. So I started this channel, Fiber Fun with Olivia. That SCRAP-GHAN video was one of my top videos on that other channel, and I decided, I think was it last year, I decided to upload that video to this channel because it was more appropriate for it to live here. Well, again, it is one of my most viewed videos in this channel. I don't do the makeup channel anymore, I do this one. But what I'm trying to get at is that it was so popular, and at first I was really surprised. Wow, it's such a popular video. Why? And yeah, definitely, you know, it has to do with the YouTube, whatever they're called, the rules and stuff, and whatever hashtags you put. But I think a lot of us love yarn. We buy yarn and then we don't know what to do with it. And I think one of the reasons why that video was so popular is because the idea of a SCRAP-GHAN can be so scary. And I did talk about that in that video. I talked about having all this yarn and wanting to make a blanket, but I was a little bit scared. So I just jumped in, and now I love making scrap blankets. So if you're interested, I will link it down below. You can go check that video out. It's from a few years back, but it's still, the content is still very relevant. I do, you know, share some patterns and just give some few tips. Anyway, lately, like I said, I have been getting the itch to make another SCRAP-GHAN. I have, in between all of this time, I've made other blankets for sure, but I haven't done like a really focused scrap blanket, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna make another one. I have my yarn in my living room. I live in a townhome, so it's small. For a very long time I had my yarn in the garage, but I brought it up. So now every time I walk past the living room, I see my lovely yarn. And yeah, so lately that super bulky yarn has been calling me. And I really don't tend to crochet a lot or even knit a lot with super bulky yarn. So some of these skeins are from a while back, and I want to use them up. So I wanted to do a couple of things. One, share some tips or some rules, non-rules maybe. Yeah, I'm going to call them non-rules. I wanted to share some books that I have that I reference sometimes. And last, I wanted to share with you my newest SCRAP-GHAN that I just started today. So let's get started. First, let's talk about those rules. I have them here written down on a Google Doc. I'm a big Google Doc person. So here are my 5 non-rules. I'm going to call them non-rules. Number 1, there are no rules. There are no rules for SCRAP-GHANs. You can do whatever you want. You can use whatever yarn you want. You can make whatever pattern you want. There are no rules. You can do whatever you want. Isn't that liberating? I know it's scary, but do it. Do it anyway. You won't regret it. Number 2, in reference to patterns, it does not have to be a stash busting or de-stash pattern. There are so many patterns out there now that's called, you know, that are called stash busting or de-stash or whatever they're called, and it doesn't have to be one of those patterns. It could be any pattern that you like. It can be the same stitch over and over if that's what you're into. I personally like sampler ones. I like, and I mentioned this in my last video, I like texture. So I like to be able to do stitches for a few rows and then switch it up to another one, switch it up to another one, and maybe come back to, but you know, so it's for a few rows so that I'm still, you know, making those stitches for a little while, but I'm not going to get bored because the whole blanket is not going to be the same stitch. So I tend to like patterns that have a lot of stitches on them, and plus I like the texture. I like bobbles, I like front post double crochets, and I love all of that stuff. So that's just me. My point is, you can choose whatever pattern you like. So when you go look at the pattern, don't focus on the colors, focus on the stitches that you enjoy. Now I will say I love bright, variegated color yarns that have different layers of colors in them, like a multi or whatnot. So I find that I like choosing different sampler stitch blanket patterns, but that are a little bit more on the simple side instead of on the crazy side. If I have a lot of solid yarns, then I'll go for the crazy. But again, there are no rules. You can do whatever you want. You can do the crazy yarn with the crazy stitches all over the place. It is up to you, but that's what I do, just to kind of balance myself out, you know? Okay, number 3. You do not have to use the yarn weight that the pattern calls for. So maybe you love the blanket pattern, but it calls for a bulky weight, or it calls for a DK weight. You don't have to listen to that. You can use whatever weight you have a ton of and you want to use up. I've done this so many times. Sometimes it'll call for a worsted weight, sometimes it'll call for a bulky weight, and I just use whatever weight I like. You can switch up the weights. There are no rules. I am a little bit anal retentive when it comes to switching up the weights, but you can do it. You can do whatever you want. Okay, number 4. You do not have to plan the order of the colors ahead of time. You don't have to. In fact, I kind of enjoy living on the edge of my seat, because every few rows I'm like, oh, of this stash that I'm trying to use up, what would go nice next? You can choose to put one that goes with that color. You can choose a color that contrasts from the prior color that you just used. You can do whatever you want, and you don't have to plan it out. Actually, I have found that the more I make scrap-GHANs, the more I enjoy the process of deciding as I go. And I'm going to show you the one that I started today, because it's about this long right now, and so I'll show you which ones I've been deciding. I knew I had this group of bulky weight yarns that I want to use, and they're all different, but as I go I'm deciding, and I really enjoy that process. And then I see them together and I'm like, oh, love it, I love it. So you do not have to decide ahead of time. And number 5, if it is a seasonal pattern, it doesn't have to be seasonal for you. By this, what I mean is I have found Christmas patterns, autumn or fall patterns. Why are they labeled like that? Because of the colors that are being used. So if you like the stitch pattern, or if you like the blanket pattern, use your own colors. It won't be a holiday pattern anymore. It won't be an autumn pattern anymore, right? I've done this, and I say these things because in the past I felt like there were these rules, and so I wanted to share them here with you today to let you know you can break whatever rules you want. the rule is there are no rules, especially for scrap-GHANs. And I didn't write this one down. I only have 5 for you, but number 6 I would say is don't be scared. Don't be scared, because that's what kept me from using up so much beautiful yarn that I had in my stash. And when I went past that fear and just started making a scrap blanket, and I just saw those beautiful colors in a blanket that keeps me or my daughter or my family or my friends warm, it's just so worth it. It's just so worth it. So don't be scared to use up that beautiful yarn that you have there in your stash and make that stash busting blanket. That scrap-GHAN. So those are my rules slash or non-rules slash tips for you on making scrap blankets. I'm going to share some books with you that I have. The rule that says that the pattern doesn't have to have scrap or de-stash or stash busting in it is because there are books, for example, like this. And at least for me, I felt like, oh, I can only use up that yarn or de-stash yarn on projects that are labeled like this. And then later on I was like, no, I don't. I could just make whatever. And so I have seen a lot of booklets and a lot of patterns that are called scrap-GHANs or de-stash blanket, but then I don't like the pattern and I'm like, I'm not gonna make this. And no disrespect, we all like different stuff, right? So what I don't like, somebody else might like or love, but that's just me. So it doesn't have to say scrap or de-stash. I did happen to like this one. This not only has shawls, but I think it did have a blanket. Now this blanket does have the same stitches over and over, but it's called a Waves Afghan. But this would be something that I do enjoy making over and over because you are changing up the stitches. You're doing it over and over, but you are, you know, making bigger stitches, smaller stitches, and I love how it looks. So this is a great idea. So I'm sharing this with you because that is an awesome blanket to make. I have made that blanket before, not from this book, but because something very similar was in another one of these books and I used my own colors. Some other books that I have that I wanted to share with you, these used to be readily available at Michael's and Joann's, and I find that they're not that available anymore, but I used to love finding these booklets. And they're thin, they have a few blankets in them, and the reason why I wanted to share these with you is because some of these, well actually all of these, for example, here's one called Green Leaves, and even the cover one is so pretty. It has all that texture that I like, or the one on the back cover. And you could make those into a stash busting blanket. It doesn't have to be all the same color, and it would look amazing. I truly, truly believe that. Here's another one, Stylish Texture. This one has quite a few blankets in it. I do like my baubles, so now I might not necessarily make it in those colors, although it is a pretty combination, but I probably would use random colors and use it as a stash busting. Some other books that I have are Vanna's Choice. This is an old one. I think I featured this book in one of my Throwback Thursday videos, but a lot of these blankets can be stash busting projects. The log one. There's some granny ones in here. There's all kinds. All kinds. Here's another one. I mean, you can use, my point is, and I'm not going to go through all, I have these other 2 books that I've had for years as well, and they all have awesome blankets. And not that the pattern has to come from a book, I'm just an Afghan pattern book addict. So I have a lot of them, but there are a lot of free ones online, on blogs, on Etsy. Etsy doesn't have the free ones, but you know, they're everywhere, right? They're everywhere. And bottom line is you can use whatever blanket pattern you like and make it a stash busting blanket. All right, now I want to share the blanket that I started today. This is what I started. Actually, let me show you the pattern first. What's the pattern called? Okay, the pattern, so this is a free pattern that I downloaded from Yarnspirations, and the way I found this actually was through Pinterest. I like to look through Pinterest, and sometimes I find free patterns and sometimes they're not free patterns. This one happened to be a free pattern, and I did download it. It's called the Sampler Blues Crochet Afghan. See if you can see it on my cell phone. I loved the texture, and this is one of those that I would call, and you know what, if this doesn't come out, I'll put like a better picture somewhere so you guys can see it, but that is what I would call like a multi-stitch sampler, but it's a little bit on the more simple, I don't want to call it simple, but it's not like super duper crazy with like a stitch in every row, for example, which I would love. But because I have kind of, and I don't want to call my yarn crazy, but I kind of do like those like fun, well, you'll see, I'll show you. But I thought that a little bit of a simpler sampler pattern would go well with my crazy yarn. Okay, I'm gonna call it crazy. So let me show you what I have so far. It looks different on each side. So let me see. Here is what, oh, actually, that's the back side. So I did tell you I like my front double post crochets. And as you move this way, you can see that that green at the bottom starts to turn yellow. And I love that. I love that. So this is what I have so far. And I'm trying to measure it. It's kind of like the length of my arms. If I stretch my arms out, and so it's I'm gonna keep going, right? Like this. And let me show you the yarns that I pulled out of my stash so far, because I still have more in my stash that I want to use up, but these are the ones that I'm using right now, and then I'll add more. But so I have a ton of these. If you guys remember my inventory videos, I have a lot of these. Woolies Thick and Quick. This one is in the color Sky Blue. So that's the one that I started with. It might be the edge. I might save it to just make that the edge all the way around. Haven't decided yet, because you don't have to decide at the beginning. After that, what did I use after that? Oh, I remember. After that, I started using this Caron Tea Cakes in the color Smoked Fruit. I've already used that middle part so you can kind of see, but it has different colors. These are all number 6 super bulky weight yarn. So that Tea Cakes is the green you see here. And I think green is the only thing. Oh, actually the green did start turning up here. I don't know. Yeah, it's green here, and then it kind of turns a bronze. You can kind of see here. Here it was green, but then it starts becoming bronze. I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, so that was the Tea Cakes. And then I pulled in some Woolies Quick and Thick in the color Astroland. This is what I mean by crazy yarn. I love these like colorful yarns. I love that. And so you'll see that one right after that green one, that green and bronze is that one right there. And that's the same one that if you move to the left side of the blanket, it also has the yellows and the pinks. That pink is interweaving through, right? That's why I loved it, the yellow and the pink. And then the next one you're seeing here is, and I don't know what color this is, but this is all I have left. This is another one of these Woolies Thick and Quick, and I don't know what this color is, but this is all I have left and I love it. And then what did I use after that? I think after that, so I chose to use that kind of violet purple because of the pinks that was here. And that's what I mean, like you're deciding as you go, because you see this and then I was like, oh, this will pull out the pink here. And then after this one, I decided to go back to the tea cakes. And so you can see the tea cakes up here. Actually, I think I did 2 or 3 rows of the tea cakes, and it did change. You can see some of the bronze in there, or orangish, bronze-ish. That's this bronze-ish. And after that one, what did I put? Oh, after that one, I put some of this Woolies in taupe. And after the taupe, so actually let me show you. So the taupe is this one. The row here, not this one, but this one. And after that taupe, I'm actually on this one right now. And although that looks taupe, if you put this taupe next to it, you'll see that this one has a little bit of a mauvish color. So I put those together because they're very similar. And so when you see those top two, you can see the taupe and then that mauvish one. And it's very subtle, but that's where I am. Like I said, I have a lot more that I want to add to this stash busting blanket. For example, I have some raspberry that I want to throw in, and I have some other balls of yarn, but I want to use up some of this one, make this grow a little bit, and see where it takes me. So there we go. I will be sharing with you all on how this stash busting blanket goes, and I invite you to join me. Do you have some yarn that you want to use up, that you want to stash bust, and you just keep on looking at it? Maybe it's in bags, maybe it's in boxes, maybe it's stored where you can see it. Take a look at it, pull it out. Maybe you have a ton of worsted weight yarn, or you have a ton of DK. Pull it out, throw them all together and see what you can make and look for a pattern. Speaking of patterns, the last thing that I wanted to do was share a bundle that I created on my Ravelry. If you all are on Ravelry, or maybe if you aren't, I invite you to come and join. For those of you that don't know what Ravelry is, I think we all know, but just in case, it's kind of like a Facebook, and it's free. You get to have your own page, you put your projects, you can click on other people, you can friend people on there, and if you friend them, then their projects or whatever they're working on will show up in your feed. You can click on the projects and you can see what yarn they used, what, you know, it's all the information that you would want to know about any project. There are also forums where people can, you know, chat with each other. A lot of designers have their own forums, and you can join or leave whenever you want. You can chat, you can do crochet alongs, make alongs in there. And there are a ton of patterns, a ton of patterns. You can also add your own library of the patterns that you have, like your books. For example, I have on there the books that I have or the patterns that I purchase, and that way when I want to do a search on patterns, I can filter only the ones in my books, and those will pull up, and then you click on that pattern, and that pattern, it'll show 20 other people made this, and you can go look and see, ooh, that looks pretty. What yarn did they use? Oh my God, you can get so lost in Ravelry. Anyway, one of the features of Ravelry is that you can create bundles. It's kind of like a playlist on Spotify. And so I created a bundle of blankets that I think would be great for stash busting blankets. Again, you don't have to use the yarn that they call for or even the weight that they call for, but I thought it would be a good starting place for you. You know, if you're interested to look at the various patterns, most of them are free on there. There might be a couple that aren't, and certainly you can look for way more on Ravelry. These are just the ones that I put together within the last couple of, actually I think I just put them together in a couple of days. And as I keep adding more, you'll still be able to see them. So if you're interested, come and check out the bundle. I will put it down in the description down below so you could just get some ideas on patterns and, you know, maybe make a stash buster. And I forgot to mention who I am on Ravelry. I am Mad About Crochet. I've been on Ravelry since, whew, I can't even remember, but it does tell you on there since blah, 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 and it has all my projects on there. But yeah, go check out the bundle, go friend me on there, and that way we can keep in touch too. I'm not on Ravelry on as much as I wish I were. When I was a stay-at-home mom, I was on there all the time because I had a lot more time. But nowadays I check in, I check out, and you know, when I'm looking for patterns or looking like I need some ideas. What have people done with this pattern, for example? How does it look with this yarn and stuff like that? So Ravelry is a great place, but there's so many places, right? But I'm sharing that just in case you want to go check out that bundle of patterns. And they're not mine. They're just random patterns that I found, and I kind of put them together. So that is all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it encourages you to use up some of that stashed yarn and put it to use. You will be so happy when you finish your stash buster and you see all the beautiful yarn together and you use it to keep yourself cozy, or, you know, give it to a relative or whatnot. You won't regret it. If you have any questions about stash busting or making blankets with random yarn in your stash, please put it in the comments down below. I will be happy to answer anything. I'm not by any means the person who knows everything about everything, but I definitely do have an opinion. I have some ideas because I've been doing this for a while and I enjoy it so much. Or if you have any new ideas that I haven't thought of, or tips on stash busting, please put them down below because other people can read them and get tips from you. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I will talk to you later. Bye.